What's up, everybody? I'm Jonathan Sewell Sales at Mitchell Mazda on the Boulevard in Enterprise, Alabama. And on today's Mazda News Update, we've got huge news, bigger crossover news. Possibly the new CX-50 was seen in Los Angeles this week. So we'll jump into that, and thank you for those who contributed to this information and brought the attention to me. Also, we're going to have a brief conversation on April 2021 Mazda sales in the U.S. And also we're going to talk about maybe some of the inventory snafu situations due to this crazy little semiconductor microchip shortage. So, stay tuned. All right, let's jump into the sales data from last month, April 2021, and it's been about a week since they've announced this. Actually, they announced it on Monday, so I'm kind of a little slow getting this to you, but we had such big shoes to fill coming off of March with just a huge March, a lot of best evers, best ever CX-30, best ever CX-9, best ever CPO, certified pre-owned, and Miata had like the best in the last 10 or 15 years, and CX-5 had its best ever March. So what did we do in April? We did about the same. So we had our best ever, second best ever CX-30 month. Also the best April ever of CX-9 and CX-5. CX-5 was within 1,000 units. Actually, I think it was about several hundred units of its best ever March. And all in all, as you see the total on this table that I'm sharing here, we were within 1,000 units of last month. Actually, it breaks down about 800 units. So 31,117 for April, and it was about 31,9 for March. So big months. And as you see with the year-over-year change, it's kind of hard to compare 2021 with 2020 with all those things going on. We know that sales really dropped off in March and April, specifically during the lockdown, shutdown, quarantine. However, I went back to look at 2019, so 2 years ago, and Mazda in April of 2019 did not sell 20,000 units. So it was just under 20,000 units. So we have seen a dramatic growth of over a third just 2 years later. So I think a couple of things attribute this. Number one, the economy is continually getting better. Number two, people are stimulating the economy and coming out of the coronavirus lockdown, shutdown scenario. And Mazda's making some good cars, and I think the word is getting out, especially being number one in Consumer Reports overall brand reliability. And of course, many of our products are rated right there at the top in their specific segments. So Mazda's got a lot of big things happening. Way to go, Mazda. The last thing to mention on the sales, or the big sales and big numbers that we've had for the last 2 months, is what's the future going to be like. We are, of course, just to start from about the middle of March, there was a fire in a chip manufacturer or assembly plant in Japan that put basically all the Japanese manufacturers into a little bit of a tailspin and having to adjust because they are not going to get the chips they were hoping to get. Mazda is going to be, of course, altering its production a little bit. And what they've done for us in North America, MNAO, Mazda North American Operations, they have basically recouped all the orders, and as they're coming into port, they're going to reallocate or redistribute them to the dealers based on sales turn rate, so that instead of like a one-for-one ordering, it's going to be how well your cars are selling off the lot. And the more you sell, the less inventory you have, the more you get, kind of idea. I ask you as Mazda shoppers, buyers, clients, customers, that you be a little bit patient with us and you may have to be a little bit flexible as far as availability of colors or equipment or port installed accessories, because we don't really have that option to order them. We can kind of request some vehicles, and our district is doing really well. Our district managers being very accommodating with sold customers, bringing in those cars almost exact to what we need. Mazda is doing everything they can to make sure that the car that you want, your perfect car, is available, and I know your local dealership will as well. Okay, now let's jump into what we've all been waiting for: new Mazda vehicles, new body styles, CX-5, CX-50. And I think this, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, is the CX-50. So thank you to Adrian from Los Angeles, or traveling through Los Angeles, and for Zach Butler in his article shared on the Fast Lane Car. And of course, many thanks to you guys. I saw it in the Mazda CX-5 USA Club group, and many of you tagged me on this post also. So this video is for you. So I'm going to dive into the pictures that we have that Adrian snapped, and kudos to him going down the freeway and recognizing something different, taking pictures and forwarding it on so it can be distributed and dispersed. So the first thing I'm going to look at in picture one here, trying to zoom in a few different options here, so just bear with me. Hopefully you can see everything. The first thing that we'll notice is this is noticeably bigger than a CX-5. And I do believe this is the CX-50, and we'll point out a few things as we go on. The first picture here, though, if you'll look at that front nose, it is definitely not as much of an overhang. I kind of say it's like a shark nose on the CX-9. This one's more blunt or straight, and you can see that little below the grill, the little beefy part of the bumper. I think, and we'll see in another picture a little bit later, this is going to be very reminiscent of the MX-30. So we're going to have a very sleek grill, and we'll see this in just a minute, with a MX-30 kind of robust front bumper there. And perhaps a little bit different styling in the signature wing up front. Also, while we have this zoomed in, you see the fender flare that's wrapped with that camouflage obstructing vinyl. Yes, it's a little bit more CX-30 than CX-5. It is a pretty wide fender flare there, and I think this will carry over, this cladding over the wheel, through the rocker panel, and over the back, as we'll see in other photos. Whether or not it's going to be the black cladding like the CX-30 or color keyed or painted to match, not sure now, but it is going to be a little bit larger. What you want to realize also is how it's kind of flattened there right above the tire. This, I think it's because it's a little bit larger of a vehicle, a little bit more wheel and tire there, and we'll talk about that in just a minute as we move forward. Other than that, what you can see from this picture, from the A-pillar down, that's very reminiscent of the Mazdas that we have now as far as that, that kind of cutout look. And then you can kind of see up top in the windshield the same old camera that we're accustomed to in our windshield now for the iActive Sense and lane departure alert and lane keep assist. So a lot of good things, a lot of similar things, and this is definitely Mazda. So let's move on to the next one. One last thing on this picture here. Do notice how that wheel's a little obstructed, a little colored or what have you. The back one not so much, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. All right, here we are. Let's start off on the back end. The first thing that you notice is it doesn't have that big, although there's going to be a lot of CX-30, MX-30 attributes in this vehicle, it doesn't have the big bump in the back for that extra cargo room. So hopefully this vehicle is a little bit bigger than the CX-5. Well, this one definitely is bigger than the CX-5, but that cargo space is contained within instead of needing to manufacture that with the bigger bump in the liftgate. Also, you'll see here on the back, the rear tail lamps are very similar, but a larger scale than the CX-30. So instead of just coming to that dramatic point like on the CX-5, it's actually more gradual and then curved at the end like a katana blade. So very CX-30-esque for this CX-50. Also looks really good with the same styling there of probably the black cladding underneath the rear spoiler, third brake light up there. Also as you see up top, even they wrapped even the roof rails, and the roof rails look exactly the same as what's on the accessory or optional on the CX-5 and standard on the CX-9 GT and higher. And I do believe that this is going to be a GT if they continue with that, or a premium plus, however they do that nomenclature. And this is going to follow suit as a CX-9 with a standard roof rail at some trims. Now, if I zoom in here and you look by that eye hook, you can see the sonar in the rear bumper or the rear sensors. I know some of you don't like my use of sonar. So you see the rear sensors there. So this is obviously a upper model or a signature, Grand Touring, etc. So the last thing, well, two things to mention. The last thing, as far as the car itself, is the tailpipe looks a little bit, the exhaust tip looks a little bit larger, very reminiscent of that turbo exhaust tip on the Mazda 3 and CX-30. The CX-5 to date on the turbos don't have a different exhaust tip. However, this one does look a little bit larger, so this could be the setup here for the new inline 6, perhaps turbocharged or just better power here. Okay, two more things. One last thing on the body here. Notice how that above this rear wheel, it's kind of sticking out there a little bit wider, a little bit pushed out, with the fuel door and the handles kind of a different angle there on that rear door. I think this is because it's a rear wheel drive, so you're going to have room to accommodate for the gas tank and maybe the spout and everything else with all that other stuff going on. So drive line and all that. So I think this is definitely going to be the CX-50, the more premium, larger, new powertrain. Not related to the car as far as the design, but do you know what state this plate is in the back? That says Pure Michigan. So Pure Michigan means that this is the manufacturer plate from Michigan, which a lot of things happen in Motown, Motor City, Detroit, and also around in other areas. Of course, you've got the domestics, and you also have some imports such as Calty Design, which is Toyota's, which they have designed a lot of vehicles over the past couple of years. And so this vehicle could have in fact been designed in Michigan, maybe assembled in Michigan, but if it's partnered with Calty and partnered with Toyota, it could have been assembled in Alabama, Mazda, Alabama, or Mazda Toyota Manufacturing, MTM of Alabama. So I say all this because a dealership buddy of mine from Canada has shared that his Mazda rep told him that it would be a bigger item, the crossover in Huntsville or North Alabama, about 3.5, 4 hours from me, would be a larger vehicle between the current CX-5 and CX-9. So like a CX-7, CX-8. However, I don't believe this one's going to have a third row seat. Going to have plenty of cargo. They could add a third row seat, but I don't think so as long as we have the CX-9. So this leads me to believe that this is what's going to be produced here to help increase our volume in the U.S. Of course, this is going to be made in other arenas as well. But this vehicle right here could itself have been assembled in America. How about that? Okay, let's move on to the next picture. Okay, here's the front picture, and you can see it's a little bit more identifiable in that grille. Looks a lot, and again, as I'm zooming in here, I apologize for the resolution here, but grateful to have these pictures. So you see that signature wing doesn't really have that dramatic point at the bottom like we're accustomed to with the CX-5. It's more, and I'll put a picture in here of the MX-30. It looks very similar to the MX-30, maybe a little bit wider, but this could be more of a boxy, rectangle, or trapezoidal front grille that Toyota and Lexus have been using for some time. See where I'm going with this? Also, there's no denying the big emblem there for the radar, pre-collision, adaptive Mazda radar cruise control. So, and also you can see the signature wing on the side over here comes up and under the headlight, which is, there's a square cut out of the headlight there. So it comes up and around, and so a little bit more of a flatter wing instead of that dramatic point and coming up. A little bit more of a more gradual or flatter, squattier look, less grill, which I really appreciate because, and it looks like there's probably going to be some openings to the radiator underneath, but right now it's just a lot of coming into the radiator, a lot of air. So breaking that up, changing that style is something that I think is a good job with Mazda. And of course, if the MX-30 is going to be the next one, you want things to kind of look the same to some extent. So this one being bigger can be a little more like the MX-30 and more unique than what we have now. All right, let's go to the last picture here. Okay, here's a better side shot, whole side shot. So the first thing I want to talk about here is that front wheel that was covered up. Look at this back wheel. Isn't that beautiful? What does it look like to you? It looks like a pizza wheel to me. So I think we're coming back with the contrasting wheels and the pizza wheel. And oh, by the way, it is a beautiful wheel. You'll notice by that red dot, you can kind of make out the tire size. And that's a 20-inch wheel, ladies and gentlemen. A 20-inch wheel. So this is going to have 20-inch wheels, much like the CX-9. And it is a bigger vehicle between the CX-5 and the CX-9. So we've got 20-inch wheels. We've got the pizza wheels, a new design pizza wheel coming back with the two-tone, which I love. Glad to have them back. And you can also see how the lighting comes from that body line with the door handles up over the fender there, that little wider area. And this has got to be the CX-50. So very excited to have these pictures here. You can also see that wider fender flare going across the rocker panel there. And I'm fairly certain, just based on some of the missing tape in front of the wheel there, that this is going to be a black plastic cladding. But maybe some models, maybe the signature model will be painted. We'll have to wait and see how that comes together. Also, you have a good picture of the roof rail, which we've already talked on. And again, I appreciate the Fastlane Car for sharing this information. And Adrian, great job, buddy. I appreciate you. So I think that about wraps us up on this specific information here. I do want to share one more thing. The fact that we know that this new naming system has been around for several years. As a matter of fact, I looked it up. It was July of 2019 when Mazda trademarked the CX-50, Mazda CX-50. So actually about 3 to 4 years before it's going to be released. As you see here in this screenshot, there's several countries that are listed here with this trademark. The first one is the United Arab Emirates, and then you work down the list: Malaysia, Australia, Japan, of course, Israel, the United States, the Philippines, New Zealand, Singapore, and Canada. So these countries are definitely getting the CX-50, at least if we're speculating here from the trademarks in those respective countries. And there may be some more as we get closer. I'm sure that the CX-50 itself is available in other countries. Before we wrap up our conversation today, let me also say, as we were doing some speculation on third row seat or not on the CX-50, I'm going to say not, because I think that the CX-9 still has a vital role in our lineup here in America, but also the CX-8 and CX-9 have vital roles in the countries that they're in. But also, if I search CX-90 on this international database, Mazda registered it as well back in July of 2019, July 5th actually in most of these countries. So I guess as the paperwork was processed after our Independence Day. So CX-90 could be coming right around the corner in the next 3 or 4 years as well. We'll have to wait and see. Well, I think that wraps it up. Before we conclude, let me say, if you notice that I changed shirts, I did. It's actually a different day. Sometimes there's technical difficulties. So thanks for hanging in with me through this Mazda News update on April sales and new crossovers, or specifically the new CX-50. If you have any questions or comments on anything we talked about today, go ahead and drop them down below, of course, or you could call or text me at 334-718-0504. I am Jonathan Sewell Sales at Mitchell Mazda on the Boulevard in Enterprise, Alabama, and I'll see you on the next one.